Vision 4, Justin Lane.
Here.
Vision 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Vision 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
I'm
Vision
having
1,
some
Shelley
trouble with
Simpson.
connection.
Here.
Please try again in a
Item 4,
moment.
adoption of agenda.
Will we adopt the agenda?
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, public comment period. Period open to the public. If anybody in the audience would like to address the board, now would be the time to do so on an item that's not on the agenda. Item number 6, new business. We don't have any new business. We have number 7, consent calendar.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 8, items for consideration and possible action. 8A1, Public Information Committee, Director Wayne.
Yeah, the Public Information Committee met over the last couple of weeks, and we've been deciding about the Kids Ag Day, and I know that Avek has supported this several times over the last couple of years, and I believe we have the Kyles here to make a presentation. General Manager Chisholm, do you have anything to add?
Yes, Assistant General Manager Casey has a short introduction, and then we'll have the cops come up and make a presentation with the kids.
Okay. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. As Director Lane mentioned, the Public Information Committee met, discussed this item. Julie Kyle with the Farm Bureau is here to answer any questions you may have. But we've got a few slides just to give a little background on what the request is this evening. Thank you. So first start off, the recommendation from both staff and the Public Information Committee is to recommend that the board approve of $5,000 in financial support and participation in the Ag Day. It's coming up in early April. A little bit of background about Kids Ag Day. It's an annual event hosted by the LA County Farm Bureau, as well as the Antelope Valley Fair. A little flyer on the right-hand side of the screen that you can see there gives some bullet points about the event. It's a hands-on educational experience for both 3rd and 4th graders. It attracts kids from local elementary schools to the event, provides students an opportunity to learn about how agriculture is essential to daily life. And also hits on the importance of water supply in both agricultural needs and other needs in the community. So students learn about the role of water, what role water plays in food production, manufacturing, livestock, and the ecology. Students participate in outreach activities that educate the future generations about water conservation, water supply, and water quality. Past few years, Avek staff has had both operators and lab staff attend the event, set up a booth, and just be able to interact with the kids, show them some demonstrations on how to test the water to ensure that it's safe for human consumption. Also feel that it attracts the next generation of workers for students to gain exposure to career opportunities related to agricultural industry as well as water. And as I mentioned, it serves the local community, elementary school kids. Last year, there was about 920 kids that attended from 12 local schools. This event lines up nicely with the agency's strategic plan, goal number 6 under communication. It hits on strategy 1, objective 5 to develop and maintain external relationships throughout the community. As I mentioned, the ask today is up to $5,000 participation from the agency. And the approved 2019-2020 budget does include funds available in the public information line item to cover this donation if the board chooses to do so this evening. So with that, I'd like to invite up Julie Kyle to the Farm Bureau. And she can answer any questions the board has, or maybe you'd like to add something to my presentation. Looks like she brought some words from her husband. So, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Julie Kiles, my assistant Galen.
Nice to meet you.
For many years, Los Angeles County Farm Bureau participated in the agricultural event down at Pomona Fairplex, Ag LA. And we, as a board, felt like we just weren't getting the response that we wanted to regarding agriculture. So the board voted, our LA County Farm Bureau board voted to bring Kids Ag Day up here. So we, in 2016, started our program. We had 500 children the first year, and I think we had maybe 12 participants in the Paris building, and then we had outdoor activities as well. Last year we did have 900 students. This year we're looking to hit 1,000. We try to actually just gain in short increments so we can handle and let us grow with the program, because our valley is, I mean, we're huge. We're not huge in agriculture anymore, but there are those of us who want to see agriculture go forward. We would like to make it clear through our demonstrations and teaching tools that farming depends on irrigation. Our water availability is the essential tool that we need for crop production. We instruct students and educators about farm water coming from different sources, whether it's surface water or groundwater pumping, and the importance of being a good steward of water. We've had Avek and Palmdale Water District, the State Department of Water Resources, the Sand District. They all have stations at Kids Ag Day LA, and they help us instruct on how having this water available for farming is critical. We gave you a package out that shows all of our different stations that we have. We have about 20 different booths that we'll have inside the Paris building. Everything from, crop productions to animal husbandry. We'll have health, lots of water booths, which is critical in California. And outside, we have different stock dog herding displays. We've got equipment displays, roping demonstrations. Lots of FFA kids participate with us, bringing in steers and swine and goats, everything. And so our intention is to keep farming in the forefront of each children's minds. And so we're here to see if you could once again partner with us. And if you have any questions, I'm available.
Julie, I had a question.
Yes.
Are they gonna do that milking deal where they have the trailer and actually milk a cow in front of the kids
The
this
mobile
year?
dairy,
Uh-huh.
that's the first thing we line up every year, because that's a
Great.
big event.
Okay.
Yes. And we have probably 15 different events outside, and we schedule the kids so everybody doesn't run to one event. We learned that really quickly the first year, so everybody is scheduled. The kids have wristbands. They're sent, 10 o'clock they go to the mobile dairy, and then the next group is at the roping events, and, other kids are doing a hayride. It's amazing how many kids have never even taken a hayride. They're just thrilled.
Can you let us know the hour roughly when Gary's going to be the milking that cow?
He'll start early and stay late.
Well, am I donating milk again this year? I believe so.
Hope so,
Yeah,
yes.
I will. Okay. Kids love that chocolate milk.
Yes, they do, and it's always kind of funny to us. We usually get about, I don't know, maybe 300 thank you notes from the kids, and we read them all at the Farm Bureau, but they all think that chocolate milk just comes straight from the cow. That's one of the things that they're always shocked to learn. So it's a great agricultural program. We hope you guys will all just come out and see us.
What's the hours? Because it's on your.
We're 9 to 1.
And the money that you're seeking for us to donate, what is that money going to go towards?
It will go primarily towards all the information that we send back with the teachers. We have different teaching matrices that we send back and educational tools. We order them from Ag in the Classroom primarily, and different gifts for the kids. We do have some free items that we get from some of the raisin growers up north. Brimley gives us carrots, but a lot of it's for the teachers.
So how do you pick the schools that you invite?
We have notified about every school in the valley. that it's open to third and fourth graders. But we do have a window
Right.
that we give them, so it's first come, first served. And we've never had to turn anybody down. There was one homeschooling group that they wanted to bring, they were insisting on bringing second to both graders, and we don't want to do that. It's open for third and fourth graders. If you do that for one, you need to do it for everybody. So primarily the costs for the teacher bags, we do provide all of the participants and volunteers that come in, we'll end up with probably 125, and we do provide lunch for them afterwards, so it's a little bit of an expense for us.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I went last year. It was a great event, and thank
It's
you
fun.
so much for putting it on.
It's fun.
I will move approval of board order 881.
At what dollar amount?
And what dollar amount? is
The amount that's, the committee, go ahead.
It was, I believe over the past, we've donated $2,500, but we kind of felt that with the amount of money that we have that's available for these kinds of programs, that the $5,000, amount would be sufficient. I mean, Gary, don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think, like Julie said, we've got more kids wanting to come.
Yeah.
And so,
It's grown over the years, so.
as it grows, I think we need to be a part of that, so.
Yeah, so at the 5,000 that the committee had requested.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you guys very much, and I hope you all come out and see us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good night,
Thank you
Joey.
very much.
Thank you, Julie.
Have a great time with those kids and teach them all about water, and we need workers.
Oh, we will.
Convert them for us. Okay, Director Lane, item 8A2.
Okay, so we also met about setting up a possible endowment with for scholarship for training for water workers at Allen Valley College, and our Assistant Manager Knudsen, could you give us an update on that as well?
Thank you, Director Lane. Good evening again. Following with the last item, I'll give a brief introduction, and then I'll invite up Diane Kniffel from the Antelope Valley Foundation, Antelope Valley College Foundation, to answer any questions that the board may have. So just a little bit of background, the recommendation of both staff and the Public Information Committee is recommended to the board this evening to approve a named scholarship endowment between $2,000 and $25,000 for the Antelope Valley College Foundation to assist students in learning about water sciences. And I'll get into a little bit more about that. If the board approved that tonight, we'd also ask that the board authorize the general manager to execute any necessary agreements to go along with the endowment. Background, Antelope Valley College, as you know, is a local accredited community college serving approximately 18,000 students. The Antelope Valley College Foundation is a nonprofit organization that receives and administers donations in support of the students. And the foundation has requested financial support from the agency to assist students in the community in learning about water sciences. So how this ties a little bit with the agency, the Antelope Valley College program provides students a path to learn about water sciences with the goal of preparing future employees for the agency. We've had a history of actually getting some very qualified and great water treatment plant operators that have gone through this same program in college. College also has a hands-on mobile water system laboratory been developed to educate students on hydraulics, water flow, and sciences. The foundation is providing scholarships to help students taking water treatment and water distribution courses for eventual certification so they can work on systems such as AVEC's water treatment plant system and distribution system. So the college currently offers 3 water courses that prepare students for the necessary certification that's needed to work on our system. They have an applied water treatment and distribution mathematics course, and then a water distribution and water treatment course. And happy to report that our new assistant manager of operations is actually one of the instructors for a couple of these courses. So one of our own employees teaches other students in the Valley about water treatment and water distribution. So that's kind of cool. Successful completion allows students to look towards obtaining those certification requirements, and they have very good class success rate. 80% of the students that go through these courses go on to obtain the necessary certification through water treatment and water distribution. So again, this lines with our strategic plan, goals number 5 and 6, you can see there. Providing training and tools necessary for staff and their success. As I mentioned, this program allows us to target students as potential employees for the agency. And then also develop and maintain external partnerships. Financial impact, Diane will get into a little bit more of the specific requests this evening and the pros and cons of the range of dollar amounts. But the committee talked about a range between $10,000 and $25,000. $10,000 is the minimum amount under the program, up to $25,000, and this does fit within our approved 2019-2020 budget. So the board to approve up to a maximum of $25,000. There is room in the budget to fund this program.
Under what line item?
It's it would be classified as public information, same as the last item. But the available funds would have to be transferred from the conservation line item. That's where we have the available budget, and move to the public information line item.
Okay, so is that going to impact what we're doing with conservation?
No, we looked at.
Because we made commitments with that.
Yeah, we've already made some commitments with conservation, and there'd still be roughly $40,000 available under the conservation line item, if anything were to come up for the remaining of this fiscal year.
Is that at the 10,000 or at the 25,000?
That's at the 25,000.
Okay. And how much of it is out of the conservation budget?
It would all have to come out of the
It would all have to come out of it?
conservation and move to public information, but we want to classify it as public information because that's
Right.
really what it is.
Exactly, I understand. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So regarding the scholarship fund, is the money utilized to go to the local college, or is it utilized to help them go into a four-year university?
Yeah, so maybe this is a good time to invite Ms. Knickle from the foundation up into the
Yeah, because it's an endowment, so it is different, and it's something we have to understand it.
There's several different ways that it goes, but it's kind of complicated.
Thank you, Chair, for the really tonight, and I appreciate staff support over the last 6 months. We've been talking about how to support our students here and eventually build a pipeline for good workers, not only at the event, but maybe other water agencies as well. So your question was, is it for the students? So an endowment is a number of 10,000 is invested, and the investment value that's created over the year or 2 or 3 that we invest goes directly to the students to give them the ability to go to the water treatment course.
Is that water treatment course at AV College?
It's at AV College. All the money stays here. It's directly focused at those students that are in the course. We generally have 40 to 45 students in each course with a very long waiting list. So we're hoping that the more that we can get students in, get them out from the certifications, and get them to take their course, we can have much more rapid turnaround to get students out.
How much does it cost? How much does it cost for somebody to go through those courses?
It's $47 per credit unit hour, and it takes them, if I remember correctly, it's 25 units in order to get the certification ability to go take the certification course.
Okay, we'll get dollars now.
Sorry, what's that, dollars?
Dollars, well, I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
So 47
times
times,
25.
you said about 25.
25.
Provider.
And is there a fee for taking the
About
test?
$1,175.
So we could allocate some of the money to be allocated for the test. I don't know the cost of the test, to be honest with you.
Oh, so this wouldn't be towards that, it
No,
would
this
just
is
be
really
towards
to
the
get them,
education?
is to attract them into the program, to pay for them to be able to take the course. Many of our students at the college, you may not know this, of the 18,000, 85% of them are on some sort of financial aid. And so the scholarship program that we offer is open to every student, whether you need financial aid or not. And we give away about $250,000 a year from our their endowments, as well as other just scholarship money to help our students. And we're right now in the middle of finishing that up by the end of this week for the next fall 2020 year.
Do they have to maintain a minimum grade point average to get the scholarship money?
Yes, so to do a scholarship, working with your staff, we develop what your requirements are. But as a minimum, they have to have a 2.0. And they have to be taking at least 6 credit unit hours. College distributes, it's mandated by the community college system.
Now, I personally disagree with that because scholarship money is for achievement. And a 2.0 is not achievement. That's
You
barely,
even said
that
it.
2.0 is barely
Sure.
even passing anything. And if you go to any organization of anything, there's a minimum usually 3.0 to get any kind of funds, sometimes even higher than that.
You can set it at any level that you want. It starts at a 2.0. If you want a 2.5
I mean-
or 3 or 4, you surely can do that.
Oh, so we can set the
Absolutely.
parameters?
Yeah.
Yes.
we can set the
Oh, okay, I'm
parameters.
sorry, I thought that was
Right.
outside school.
And you can say that maybe a potential candidate, you want them to have some community service. And so that can be part of the application process as well.
I personally would support, this the scholarship fund, if there was a minimum of 3.0 GPA for these students, because, like you said, it'll help us, but also help other water agencies retain these students to work for us in the Antelope Valley. So I don't know if that goes back to the committee. What?
You could just, if the majority of the board feels that that's an appropriate condition, you could make it part of the motion.
I think we need to know more about how the endowment works.
Okay?
Wow.
Yeah, this year, I wouldn't look into yesterday's market, but this past year, closing in December, because the markets were so very good, we got 12.1%.
So then you take the 10,000 plus the return on the investment for the year, and those are the funds that are available
Right, so
to
we-
give out as scholarships, and do you give them out per year or?
Once a year, so
Once a
it's,
year.
yes, so let's say you have 10,000, and let's say that you got your 9%, 0.6%. You probably will have about $750 to $1,000, depending on the market for that year, to be able to give to a student. We cap it at a 5% spend. And the reason that we do that is that we never will allow your endowment to go below its corpus or its original investment. So if it was a $10,000 investment, it will never go below 10,000. Even if the market drops, you're going to stay at 10,000.
So we're basically using our return on investment on the endowment investment to fund people's scholarships.
Yes. And then the only fee that my foundation charges is in endowment management, because it does cost us some money to use an outside firm to manage our money. It's a 2% fee, so that comes off the top of that investment as well. And 6%, 0.6% of that 2% fee is what goes to the investment manager. It's the lowest in the state. The average in other community college foundations is 1.3 to 1.7.
So the endowment's perpetual?
It is forever and a day. So if you put it in today, you never have to put in any more money. It will go on forever. Now, they had done a question during our other meeting, what happens if the foundation folded? Oh gosh, I hope not. But if it does, there are IRS laws on endowments. There are policies within the college and policies within the foundation that say that the board of trustees of the college would then take over those endowments, and they can only be used for the goal that they were originally intended, which would be for scholarships, in this case for water treatment students, assuming the program is still there. Now, we've had some programs that have gone away over time, like the our clothing and textiles program. Then we try to find with the donor a close alignment that matches the needs. So let's just say the water treatment plant went away. Maybe you'd like a biology student to help work with something else.
And if we didn't want to continue on? If you didn't have a program that we were interested in, let me restate.
We would have to find something that would match, so the IRS laws do not allow us to return funds.
Thank you, that's what I was wanting to
And
know.
then the other question that came out too from the public committee was, well, how many other public agencies, do you have? Because it seemed to be a concern for you. Well, we have 5 public agencies right now. One is the Westside School District, Hollandale School District, Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District, the California, the Edison International, along with the partnership from the Public Utilities Commission, and Antelope Valley Transit Authority in this local area. And I would make another suggestion, of course, I wouldn't be doing my fundraising goal if I didn't bring this forward. So if you're considering $25,000, I'd like you to really consider that, and here's why. As I understand, Avek is going into a 60th year celebration over this next year. And that was kind of one of the interests from the committee of, what can we do to raise our visibility a little bit? I would suggest that you take the $25,000, invest the 20 as the corpus or the investment, take the remaining $5,000, split that over 2 years as your $20,000 is gaining interest, so that you would have money 3 years from now. And take that $5,000 over 2 years and split it however you guys would like to split it. You want to do $1,000 in 1 year scholarships. You want to do 2 this year at 1,000 and 2 next year at 1,000, so that you can immediately take some benefit and maybe a little PR capability from the usage of trying to give students your endowment.
So Director Lane, what is your committee's suggestion?
Well, I believe that after hearing some of the presentation and the value that having local treatment operators is hard to attract qualified people to move here to the Antelope Valley to do these kinds of jobs. I know that there's a high turnover rate. A lot of them do leave, but I think that it's important for us to have a good source of local trained water treatment operators here, and that's a good idea that you mentioned about having the maybe investing the 20 and then being able to give away a few scholarships this year or next year. With the looking at the budget and things, I tend to think that we should get more. We would get more investment value investing at the the $20,000 or $25,000 mark rather than at 10. So that would be my suggestion. Would be in that range.
Is that what the committee came up with, or are you saying that's what?
I'm saying that right now, just after listening.
Okay.
I mean, I believe that the committee thought that we should be
I spent a lot
at
of
the.
time on this, I can tell.
We have. It's I personally think that we should invest at least 20,000, and the other members of the committee can weigh in on this as well, but it's kind of I think that it's important to have especially we spend the agency would gain a lot more than this. Would gain a lot more from a program like this than what we get even from like the donation that we give to the conservation district, for example. I personally believe.
Which is where the money would come out of. On a $20,000 investment, how much, after it starts accumulating, how many people will we be able to sponsor?
It depends on your market. Okay, but very soon we're rolling 3-year at 9.6, which is what we've been doing in the last 3 years. We would probably have about 1,700 to 2,000 to spend. And that's why if you waited by taking an extra 5,000 to do 2 years to help support students directly, now on your year 3, you may even be a little bit more. It may be around the 2,500 mark. And that would be perpetual then for its lifetime, assuming the market stays where it is.
And you also mentioned that you have a lot of students and you're unable to, your classes are filled. Are you going to be doing anything to?
Yeah, we're
open up
actually
classes?
opening in fall 3 more courses
Okay.
for water treatment.
I mean, because it's great if we want to sponsor people, but if you already have too many people,
No,
we wanna
we're
make sure
opening
that-
up 3 more sessions.
3 more sessions.
So that tells me there's a need and there's an
Right,
interest.
right.
And let me just tell you, I come from the aerospace business, right? I was never a fundraiser. But let me tell you, in a corporate world, sometimes you forget what it is you're working for. You may make missiles or airplanes or whatever, it's great. I'm telling you, when you hand money to a student, it's exciting. Sorry. It helps them, they get where they go, right?
Yeah.
Sorry about this, guys. But I just had a whole enroll a student to receive a $3,000 scholarship. And that student now is going to work for Northrop Grumman. Right?
That's
It's great.
awesome.
So there's stories like that all over the campus. That's why I'm here doing what I'm doing.
Good for you.
Sorry.
I have a question. I'm looking at your major list. Majors. Where is it on here? I can't find
This
it.
is the majors list. This is a preparation, it's a certificate program. So
It's not a certificate program?
Yes,
Okay.
it's not a degree, it's a certificate program.
No, the reason I say, because it said down here at the bottom, there's an asterisk, it says certificate programs only. So I was wondering, did it include it on here?
It should be on the list, if it's not, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Something the college produces, so.
Okay.
Is that it? Director Harris, your question?
No, I was going to move approval for Board Order 882 at the rate of 25,000, 20,000 going to the endowment, 5,000 for scholarships, commemorating our 60th anniversary, and with a recommendation that those go to students with at least a 3.0 average, and that we actually present checks at a board meeting celebrating the students that are getting them for our 60th anniversary.
I'll
Is that
second the motion.
possible? Is that possible to have
Yeah,
the
let me
students?
expound
Yeah.
on that. So once we have our scholarships awarded, we offer what's called a meet and greet, which is the donor and the students come together at the Link Center. It's a very, very long time. And they will have known what their money recipient is. But many of our donors like to, like the Kiwanis clubs and Rotary, like to bring their selected students to a board meeting and give them a certificate themselves or whatever, so we can show them
Okay,
that.
great.
Not a problem.
And we could arrange to have them, give them a tour of our facility
Absolutely.
and what the job opportunities
Absolutely.
are and all that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Right. And then you may want to think about from a PR perspective, that's kind of my little background, that if you wanted to make a little hay, it's up to you guys. If you want to do like one of the, plastic checks or something that gives you a little visibility that goes and ties with your 60th anniversary at the college, glad to do that.
Okay, great. We have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you to the students.
Thank
They
you.
all
Forward
work
to hearing from you.
directly because our scholarships close on Friday to get my criteria in so we can get students in there, okay? All right.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you so much.
Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Director Lane, item 8A3.
Assistant Manager Knudsen, are you making this presentation?
This is where I get to pass it on to General Manager Chisholm.
Okay.
Yeah, we swapped this one out, so, okay. So, the Public Information Committee spent a lot of time and effort in trying to develop a strategic communication plan or communication plan for the agency. And what the plan's purpose is to provide some direction and planning for implementing our outreach activities. Provide some timely, relevant information to our stakeholders and the public, and to provide some structures for staff in developing communications that are consistent with the board's approved strategies. So when we're looking at developing a new plan, this type, we kind of look at our strategic plan and what goals and objectives that will help guide us in preparation of the plan. And you can see there's several of them that are included in our strategic plan. And I'll just highlight a few of them. Ensure that the agency policy and programs are consistent throughout. Participate in state and federal legislation as required. Participate in water industry coalitions. Maintain relationships with area legislatures and staff. And develop and maintain external partnerships. And define Avek's outreach strategy. And that's essentially what the plan is intending to do. So in developing a new plan such as this, we wanted to look at a particular approach that we had for developing the plan. And we wanted to identify opportunities so we can kind of address problems in advance. We wanted to have a more of a proactive approach. We wanted to influence more positive outcomes, use fewer resources than we've used in the past. And the plan requires efforts at all levels of the organization. So there'll be a little work for everybody to do within the organization to implement the plan. And then realizing that it's a living document that can be changed and should be reviewed on an annual basis. So in developing the approach, we set out to have six methodical steps. In other words, we want to set our core values and objectives for the plan. We wanted to define our audiences to know who we were going to try and communicate with. We wanted to create messaging that is consistent throughout the plan. Develop some actions that actually implement the plan. Go through an approval process that is transparent for the board and for staff, and then evaluate the plan as it's implemented and make recommendations for improvements when we revise the plan in a year from now. We had two main core goals that we looked at and talked to the Public Information Committee about. That was the establishment of the agency's profile and brand and reputation, and then to inform and educate stakeholders and the public about the agency. So those are the two main core goals that we wanted to establish for the plan. So if you're looking at goal 1, we wanted to have a consistent brand identity. We wanted to have our messages be kind of the same as they go through all different types of channels of communication. We wanted to develop a proactive communication style, take an active role to kind of make things happen, not just put information out for the sake of information, but actually to accomplish things. We wanted to engage our stakeholders and increase awareness or support of the agency and its projects. And I think that's a key component of the plan, is to get some understanding from our key stakeholders with what our projects are and how they're going to benefit them. And then also position the agency as a thought leader, contributing to the conversation and build trust and cooperation and increase our positive word of mouth. On goal 2, we wanted to meet that goal. We looked at increasing the number of people who can identify the agency, increase the number of people who understand our issues, engage our stakeholders, increase traffic at the agency website, and convey clear messages about the values of imported water and building resiliency through our water storage programs. So, once we had our goals, we then looked as to who the target audiences would be, because you may have one type of messaging that you use for one audience, and which might be different than the other audience. So we identified three different audience groups. Our primary stakeholders are the people that are most affected by us. This would be the customers, directors, staff, and many of our state water contractor, fellow contractors in the state. Kind of our secondary stakeholders would have less interest, but would have significant influence. Those would be our constituents, government agencies, elected officials, those types of groups. And then the tertiary is stakeholders are either direct or indirect interest, but still influence us. This would be classified as, industry networks, media, educational institutes, trade organizations, aqua, other types of organizations that we're associated with. So with our goals and our target audiences, the plan contemplates providing some what they call touchstone messaging, or basically a cheat sheet that would be developed that would provide language that would be consistent throughout the products that we would develop. For example, I'll just give you one here, sustainability as a statement that we would want to maintain. Avek's water banking and storage programs are the cornerstone to building a sustainable water supply for generations to come. These are the kinds of things that you would develop and try and have those same kind of comments through a myriad of documents and brochures and other things that we would try and produce. And we would create this sheet with the information committee to be utilized. So what are some of the actions? What is this plan actually going to do? It's going to use our core messaging for all our communication efforts. We're going to segment our audiences and maintain a stakeholder base so we know who we're communicating to. We're going to have a consistent use of our templates and communications. We're going to use press releases to secure news articles when appropriate. We're going to have some website communications and a customer-focused newsletter. We're going to produce a year review and a report that can be utilized. And as we found out as we were going through this process, we need to have a presence in the social media channels, not a large presence, but we need to have a presence in social media. But I wanted to outline for you, and we did outline for the information committee, that we do have a presence on the social media, and here it is. Here's a couple of pages that we have that are out there on social media having to do with Avek. You can see that we have our swearing-in ceremony, and somebody put a little cartoon next to it, and then we have this flying saucer, which is represented as Avek's flying saucer storage facility. So what this plan anticipates doing is that we would like to own take ownership of all the pages that are out in social media, so we can prevent this type of information going up on the social media sites, and we'll try and take control of these ones that are out there currently. So if you used, and I'm not a social media person, but if you use one of those services and look that up, and I believe Director Lane actually did that at the meeting to prove to himself that this type of information was on the out there in the web already.
What's that boy doing?
Well, I don't know exactly, but I just didn't want to ask. I just know it's probably
That's odd.
it's just an odd deal. So what other actions do we have? We need to coordinate our efforts with our advocacy groups and coalitions. We need some direct engagement when possible. Speaking engagements, which we've done in the past, do some local events and awards and scholarships, like we talked about tonight. So, how does all this information get produced, and how does it go through an approval process? And what the plan indicates very clearly, and this is why it's important for the board and the staff to clearly understand the direction here, is that any action that's required from this plan that requires any expenses whatsoever will have to go through a committee board approval process. And all the actions that are outlined in the strategic communication plan will have to go through the same type of thing. So we develop a new brochure. It'll go through the Public Information Committee and onto the board for final approval before it's distributed. The only exceptions to that are press releases that require a 72-hour or less release, and those could be approved by the general manager with the board president given 24 hours to provide some response. So if for some reason we had something that we had to put out right away, the things that come to mind are maybe in an emergency situation, boil water notice, something like that might come about where you really need to get the information out. And then under my authority, we would only put up items on the website and the social media content that has been approved by the board. So it's all material that's approved by the board. And then we would go through an evaluation process to see how see how we can go about doing it. And some of the ways we'll look to go through the evaluation process, I should say, is we'll go through some Google Analytics to measure our website traffic, number of media placements, attendance at events, social media page insights, surveys, some various other items. This just gives you an example of things that we'll try and track to see how we're doing with regards to the communication plan. So, that you may have, that's the overview of the communication plan.
Director Lane, do you have anything to add?
No, I think we're just trying to take kind of, especially my concern was more with was taking control of more of the social media aspects of where somebody from the agency is actually in control of the page and people just can't tag the agency and, like some of these things were, I want us to be able to control our public image. Not necessarily going in, I'm not looking to be, out there anymore. I just want to have a little bit tighter reins over who and what can be posted on our social media pages, but that's all I have to add.
Any other comments? Questions?
Is there somebody on the information committee that is up to date on social media and the technology and whatnot?
I mean, I am, but I don't know. I don't think that it's something that a board member needs to be monitoring. It's just that somebody from the agency needs to, because there's a process that you have to go through, especially with Facebook and things, that you have to prove that you're the actual person who owns the, that you're somebody from AVAC, or, I ran into this with like our own business, or, because anybody can be walking along the aqueduct and they can tag that they're at AVAC, for example, just because it pops up that, that they're in proximity. So it just needs to be, we need to consolidate things, and it just has to have, there's a process, and it's different for each, for Instagram is different versus Facebook, or LinkedIn is not really is more of a professional bio website, so I don't think that's something that the agency needs to really be too concerned about, but especially Facebook and Instagram, I think that we need to make sure that there is a single, like there's one AVAC page, not just, you're not getting all these random things popping up and that could potentially negatively harm the agency.
So is that something a staff person is going to be responsible for then?
I thought we approved a budget to be in compliance with our website not too long ago.
We did. We had a budget. We had it approved. It's all. What's the right acronym? H.
Yeah, it's so.
Yeah.
So what do we have to
ADA
do?
Well,
compliant.
this is just on the website.
This is just on the
This is
website.
talking like all the things coming into the website.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we are ADA compliant with the website.
yeah, this really doesn't have anything to do with the website, this is more, social media,
Right.
people being
So
able
we'll
to.
leave it to the kids.
I use it every day. I have thousands of people. I use it for my own work.
Yeah, well, it's
I
just,
know, but I don't know how it relates to a public agency. That's the big question.
the thing is, we don't have control over our own website, over our own Facebook page.
Oh, website or Facebook?
Facebook, we don't, Facebook
Okay.
and Instagram, we do not have direct control over our own page. So somebody, whoever it is, needs to, you have to go to Facebook and prove that, hey, I'm the general manager of AVAC, we need to have control over our page.
Why are we putting that stuff on there? That's what I.
We don't have, we can't.
We don't put anything on there. It's random people out there putting things on
Can you show me
Facebook saying
some-
it's us.
I know what you're talking about, but can you show me the stuff they have?
There was just a
It's
few,
on the slide.
there was just a few things on the,
These are some items that are on Facebook and Instagram.
Is that
Having
what
to do with
you-
ABEC.
That's where your face used to be, where that tag is on the left.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I mean, you can get deep with this stuff, but, you know, I'm here, when we have morning meetings or lunch meetings, you know, committee meetings, people walking from the street up and down this driveway all the time. I see them all the time with a dog and everything else. Nobody's stopping them there. I mean, are you talking about higher?
No.
What I'm saying, I mean,
No.
they could, but I mean, no, one person says, you don't mind when we're gonna go hike up on the Aqueduct. It wasn't my place to say anything, but I'm saying,
Right.
so what, I mean, that's what these people are doing.
No. What they're doing is they're creating these graphics and they're posting them on Facebook and saying that they're coming from ABEC.
That's what needs to be stopped.
And that's what I'm talking about is
Well,
that,
I know one of them, it's not here, but Katie Hill did it, the day she had a photograph here, her colleagues took the photograph of us and put it on Facebook. You can't stop that.
no, but it wouldn't be under ABEC's name, that's the difference. See, these folks are putting it under our name. And by putting our name and having our own account, we can take things down
I
if
can't
somebody
read
puts
what
it
it
up.
says here, so I can't agree with you until you guys put this stuff in front of me. It says, it's from AVAC whatever, Jim at AVAC, whatever.
Right.
See, it says flying saucer has landed.
Okay.
Flying saucer has landed.
All it says here, this guy McRae is at AVAC, so what? It says right here, I added a new photo at Analyze Pure Water Agency.
So he's posted something on our, as if it was from ABEC.
People do that all the time. I don't understand. We do that
All we're saying, Frank, is that we need to have control over our
I wanna
own
see it.
social media accounts. That's all that we're saying with this.
And there's no budget.
There's no budget, there's no budget impact.
Right.
There's no, it's just saying that we need to have control over our own, over our own website, over our own social media pages. That's all that we're saying.
Okay.
Not that anything needs to change or anything, it's just we need to have control that whether or not, just even if it's, somebody posts something on there, we can either take it down or interact with them. I don't even know if anybody has access to go on there and even say, hey, thank you for coming to AVAC's meeting.
But this communication plan is more than that.
Yeah, it is.
This is a lot more than
Yeah.
just that, because you have these strategic goals that you want to accomplish to carry through on any media that we get
Right.
printed or otherwise to get our message across to the public.
Right. That
So
needs
it's
that
much
there's a
deeper
process to
than
go
what-
through for everything.
So do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the 2020 Strategic Communications Plan as recommended by the Public Information Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Motion carries. One abstain. Okay, item 8A4, recommend.
Is this, who's doing this?
Matt.
Matt?
I'll do this.
Matt, okay.
Yeah, good evening again. So included in your board packet is a brief memo, and attached to the memo starts on page 86 of your board packet. And then attached to the memo is a copy of the agreement that's going to be considered this evening. So as you know, we've been working with Ms. Alicia Stemchuk for a few years now, acting as a technical writer for the agency. And so this, her current contract is up for renewal. It was a one-year contract. And this was presented to the Public Information Committee, and both the committee and staff are recommending that the board of directors approve the renewal of a professional services agreement with Elizabeth Stemchuk for the modified scope of work, and we'll get into that a little bit more. and also authorize the agency's general manager to execute said professional services agreement. So a little bit of background, as you know, PSA with Alicia is will allow agency staff to continue to have someone available with the skills and experience to prepare press releases, technical writings, newsletters, and designated documents. Ms. Semchuk has experience in journalists. She worked for AV Press, amongst other things. But writing articles for public is a big part of her background, covering local water-related issues. She's in her 3rd year as a consultant for the agency, and she knows the agency well, as along with the history and past and current projects being undertaken by the agency. So the purpose is, if the agency adopts, which just did, the 2020 Strategic Communication Plan, the retention of Ms. Semchuk ensures a high level of continuity and consistency in releasing timely information to the public. The term of the PSA will be for 1 year, unless terminated earlier. The fee will be at $50 per hour, that's the current rate as well, for up to 30 hours per month, maximum of $1,500 per month. And then if there's any justification where she goes outside the defined scope of work, or agency staff, general manager, or myself see a need to go beyond the 30 hours of work, she can get prior authorization to do that. If there's a special project or anything that comes about that we want to go beyond the 30 hours. So that's spelled out in the agreement. This also aligns with our strategic planning component, goal number 6, maintain access to external public relations capacity. And then I wanted to point to the agreement. Look at page 91 of your board packet. You should have had on your desk this evening a single page. And so that loose document that was on your desk this evening would replace page 91 of your board packet. We cleaned up the language under section 3.3 fees and payments, because it was the language that was included in the packet talked both about an hourly rate and a retainer. So the revised version that you have on your desk makes it clear that there's no retainer. It's based on 30 hours per month at $50 an hour. And then in addition to that, I want to bring your attention to something that we added to this new refined scope or agreement. Is on page 97 of your board packet. It's a defined scope of work or statement of work. In the past, we didn't have a clear definition of what the deliverables would be for the agency. It wasn't clearly defined. So this statement of work aligns well with the communication plan that the board just adopted, and some highlights are Alicia has done a great job in preparing quarterly employee newsletters. I think we've all seen those. Those are very well done, very professional. The way to communicate with all of the agency staff, what the agency's up to, what's going on, introducing new employees, etc. So we want to continue with that. We need 3 to 5 articles per year. And kind of expanding on that is creating biannual customer newsletters. So this would be for our external customers. And it would be a way for the agency to get the word out of what the agency's working on, some of the projects that we're working on, things that are going on within the agency. Have her do 1 to 2 new news bulletins per month. Kind of look for award submissions that we can submit annually through agencies such as AWWA or Aqua. Draft some content that would be used for the website. And there's some other ones here. I think those are the highlights. So as I said, this is a defined scope of work, gives some quantities and goals for Alicia to work towards, 30 hours per month. Obviously, as I mentioned before, if she goes beyond the 30, if there's a need to go beyond the 30 hours, she can get prior approval from Dwayne or myself to do that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, but staff is recommending approval of the agreement with the amended sheet that was handed out this evening.
Good job. I like that you have the statement of work spelling out exactly what our expectations are, and so Alicia knows what her we expect. She can work
I think it's a good
together.
addition for both parties.
Yes.
You know, she knows.
Right, exactly. Dr. Lane? anything else?
No.
I'll make a motion, we approve Board Order 884.
Second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 885 is being postponed. Anything else, Director Lane?
No,
Thank you.
no, thank you.
Item 8B, Finance Committee, Director Donato.
Thank you. Finance Committee met yesterday. The first one is being tabled, so it's
Correct.
important, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Second one is consideration and possible attendance at the Groundwater Resource Association of California upcoming groundwater monitoring conference in Monterey. General Manager Chisholm asked this be approved. Finance Committee looked it over and we agreed. Committee did. We would make a recommendation that we allow the board and management have the opportunity, because since we're getting into the major groundwater banking business, it's an opportunity for us to understand it a lot better and what deals with the laws and management. So you want to touch base on that?
Yes, the Groundwater Association is a separate organization. As the board is aware, we have a series of conferences that we approve every year during the budget process. And any conference that isn't on that particular list has to come before the board in order to get approved. So the Groundwater Resources Association of California and their program that they have is not included on that list, and for that reason, we're bringing it forward to the board for their review. As Director Donato indicated, the staff is going to be moving very quickly into a significant groundwater modeling and a sustainability program for our various water banking and resource recovery facilities. And this seems to be very appropriate for us, as we can use this as additional background in being able to administer those contracts and understand our basin much better. So that's basically what's involved, and it's something that likely will include on the list in the future, because although this is just one for this year coming up, there will be others in the future that may be appropriate also.
Okay, do I have any other questions? Motion?
I move on Board Order 8D2 that we approve groundwater association.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Director Donato. Item 8C, Director Pierce, Water Master Communications Committee.
I'll turn that over to Matt.
Thank you.
Good evening. Included in your board packet on page 137 is a copy of the Water Master agenda for tomorrow's meeting here at 10 a.m. So as keeping with the past, we've provided the agenda for the Water Master board meeting to go through the items that may need direction from the board to Avek's representative. And my understanding tomorrow is Director Paris will not be at the Water Master meeting, so General Manager Chisholm will be filling in for him. So this is an opportunity for the board to provide direction or guidance to General Manager Chisholm in relation to tomorrow's meeting. So we'll just go through a few items, if you don't mind. So on page 137, item 8A, there's a couple of transfers. Item A is a transfer of production rights between High Desert Dairy and the siblings of the Van Dam family. And then item B is a couple of transfers of carryover water from Lane Family Trust to Vulcan, and then another one from Nebaker to Roseman Community Services District. Both of these have been reviewed by General Counsel for the Water Master as well as the Water Master Engineer and the Advisory Committee. So they're recommending approval of those two items. And then maybe moving on to the next page on 138, we have items 8C and D, which are two banking and recovery storage applications. One's between the Water Master and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District, and the other is with Water Master and Roseman Community Services District. Little Rock Creeks is taking imported water from State Water Project, recharging it in Little Rock Creek, and getting a credit for that. And Roseman Community Services District is actually recharging tertiary treated effluent from the wastewater plant into a recharge facility and getting a credit for that. So both of these have gone through the vetting process of the regulatory CEQA compliance, particularly Roseman Community Services District with the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board. Both these projects have all the necessary permits necessary, so this is a formality to get the storage agreement in place with the Water Master. And staff is recommending board support both of those items. Item E is the formation of a standing committee. This is an opportunity to appoint 2 Water Master board members to a standing committee to, we're going to recommend it be called the Administrative Committee. And it's an opportunity for the committee to meet with admin staff and provide direction and some oversight of the finances of the agency, so that when they come to the Water Master meeting, there's a recommendation and support of the various items. So that item will be discussed tomorrow. And then the big one we wanted to talk about tonight is item F, is setting the 2020 replacement water assessment fee. So as you know, in the past, this agency has worked with Little Rock Creek Irrigation District and Palmdale Water District through the Anabi State Water Contractors Association for the Water Master. And this year it's up for renewal for calendar year 2020. The recommendation is to set the fee at $486 per acre foot for any producer that's within the Anabi State Water Contractor boundaries, which is tied to our State Water project, each of the 3 agencies. And then $989 per acre foot for any producer that produces outside the Anabi State Water Contractors Association boundary. So we're using the same methodology that's been used prior years, which has gone through the appeal process or challenge process from Phelan Pinyon Hills, and Judge Comar supported and solidified the methodology that we use and backed it up. The methodology, as you recall, was developed through Raftellus Financial Consultants, which was an independent consultant hired by the association to help establish this fee or calculate the fee. So tomorrow our recommendation, as well as the advisory committees, is to support those 2 fees, $486 within the boundary and $989 per acre foot outside the boundary. So this is what we have on that item, and then moving on to the last item, item G is the rules and regulations. There's a formation of a legal advisory or ad hoc committee, a legal representative from each of the 5 seats on the Water Master Board. That group has been pretty active last month or so, communicating and sharing comments on the draft rules and regulations for the Water Master. And that's going to be a great step once we get that in place. The goal is to have a draft done in early March, hopefully. And then tomorrow we would be setting the public hearing date to have the Water Master Board adopt those rules and regulations. So we hope to do that in April. We'll probably use the month of March to present a draft, start reviewing it through the advisory committee, and then bring it back hopefully in April for the Water Master Board to adopt. And that's all I have to report, unless there are any questions on that.
Director Harris, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, item number 9, old business. There is none. Item 10, general manager's report.
Yes. As part of the general manager's report, I know there was a considerable amount of interest with regards to PFAS regulations So we have an update for you tonight. Jordan Ray is going to provide that update.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tonight I'm going to give you a little background on PFAS and talk about some of the regulatory things that are happening. So PFAS stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. What are PFAS? They're a large group of over 4,000 man-made chemical compounds that include PFOA and PFOS. They have been manufactured and used around the globe since the 1940s. These chemicals are highly touted for their ability to repel oil and water, and this makes them great for use in stain repellents and non-stick items. PFAS are commonly referred to as the forever chemical because they don't break down and can accumulate over time. They were first identified as health risks in 2000 and are no longer produced in the United States, although they're still produced internationally and can be imported into the U.S. through consumer goods. So what are some common sources of PFAS? Non-stick cookware, Teflon is a big one. Stain-resistant products, this includes clothing, carpets, and upholstery. Firefighting foams, fast food packaging, grooming products, which can be shampoos, soaps, lotions. They're also in paints, pesticides, and photography. So here's a little graphic of the PFAS cycle. So how do these chemicals get from common household items into our groundwater? So in the past, PFAS producing industries, they could discharge their wastewater straight into rivers and the groundwater. If they did discharge to a wastewater treatment plant, conventional wastewater treatment plants don't treat for PFAS. They can also expel them through smokestacks which travel through the air. And then if the wastewater treatment plants, they can discharge their wastewater straight into the streams and then also into landfills as sludge or onto our food crops as biosolids. So what are some of the effects of exposure? According to the EPA, lifetime exposure to contaminated water can result in adverse health conditions, such as reproductive issues and developmental effects on unborn children, kidney and testicular cancer, and then also negative effects on the immune system, such as antibody production. And then, so there's some current regulation out there. In April 2019, the State Water Board issued orders to certain selected airports, landfills, and adjacent water systems that were identified as potential PFAS source locations. So the map to the right, there's chrome plating facilities. Those are the gray diamonds. Landfills are the orange squares, and then airplanes are airports. And you can see some of the selected sites in our area. So what are the limits for PFAS? PFAS is measured in parts per trillion, so it's very, very low amounts. There's notification levels and response levels. Notification levels are 6.5 parts per trillion for PFAS and 5.1 parts per trillion for PFOA. And then water systems that exceed these levels, they must notify their customers. Response levels are when they need to take action. It's 40 parts per PFAS and 10 parts per trillion for PFOA. And then any water systems exceeding these levels, they must remove the source from service or provide treatment. So these response levels were just lowered February 6th. They were a combined sum of 70 parts per trillion. And so then any water system who was previously under the level, they now could be in violation when they previously weren't. So if they need to provide treatment options, there's a few out there. There's granular activated carbon, powdered activated carbon, anion exchange resin, and high pressure membranes. The short chain and long chain just refers to the chemical structure of the PFAS. So for short chain removal, high pressure membranes are most effective. GAC and anion exchange, they're moderately effective, and PAC isn't effective. For long chain removal, GAC and anion exchange are very effective. High pressure membranes are effective, and PAC is moderately effective. As far as removal of other contaminants in the water goes, GAC and high pressure membranes They're very effective. Anion exchange is moderately effective, and PAC is not effective. The cost range from least expensive to most expensive from left to right, and then all of the disposal requirements for the treatment, they're difficult for all these options.
Jordan, how many 40 parts per trillion? Can you give us an example of how little that is?
Yeah, so they say 1 part per trillion is like a grain of sand in an Olympic size spoon. So very, very small.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah, very hard to detect too. So what are we doing? We are currently monitoring the ever-evolving regulatory requirements. Notification levels and response levels were both lowered within the past year. Response levels were lowered in the beginning of this month, and notification levels were lowered past August. So PFAS, they're a large group of chemicals. There's over 4,000 compounds, and currently the approved methods of testing only identify 18 of those. So they're constantly developing new technology and new types of PFAS that can be in the water. We're keeping track of all those changes. Also, the California Office of Environmental Health and Hazard Assessment, they're in the process of developing public health goals, and developing public health goals is the first step in for the state water board to establish MCLs. So then we've also tested a well at each one of our groundwater well sites, and all those results came back non-detected. So that's good. I've also spoken with the lab director at Palmdale, and all of her testing, she's had no detections either, so that's good. All right, any questions?
It's a serious problem. From the conferences I've been going to, all the other agencies are talking about how significant this change in February is, going up to 40 parts. And the Florida Valley is facing that problem with some of their wells, and they've had to shut down, I think, 18.
Correct.
So it's pretty serious.
And significant treatment on some of them that they can treat, not all of them are maybe able to treat.
Right.
Where's that makeup water come from then when they shut those wells down?
You have to buy water,
You gotta buy water, and find new sources.
so that's why I was talking to you. Have water.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good presentation.
Okay, to add on, this is the general manager's report. And we, the area in brown is our 8 station area. It's the watershed that we get our most of our water from. It's transported down, and it's been very dry in February, to say the least. Snow levels are going to stay above 8,000 feet in elevation through Friday. And only early next week as the snow levels come down very much, but there's not a lot of precipitation, even though it's a little bit colder. Take a look at our snow levels. This corresponds to the north, the middle, and the south. And this particular blue line right here shows you where this is. This is average, so we're considerably below average. We came out of the gate doing really well in December, and we've just fallen flat on our face since with regards to snow. This is a very telling graph, and for the first time in history, we have 0 precipitation in February. We have in the 8 station area that I showed, there's no precipitation. They don't expect any today. So you can see we came out, started the year kind of slow, picked up a little bit, had a great December. Early January was pretty good, and then we fell apart in late January, and February has been completely dry. I have some graphs to tell you that the picture doesn't look good the next 90 days either. We have a big, large, high-pressure system off the coast that's driving all the storm northward. So you can see, this is also reflected in our aid station index. This is the diagram here. You can see it's completely flat through November, and we should be up closer to here. It's 17.8 inches of rain that we've received over this period. The driest on record is 19, so we haven't even passed our lowest dry year yet. And here's the 90-day forecast for temperature and precipitation outlook. So you can see B means below normal. So you can see we're in all of California is in a fairly significant below normal prediction of precipitation. And you can see that the 90-day outlook for temperature is higher. So you're looking at a relatively warm March, April, and May. If this turns out to be true, things can change, but it is an indication of the future. So what does that look as far as the statewide conditions look? You can see that I believe it was probably about 4 months ago, 5 months ago, I gave you a graph of California that showed it all green and everything was wonderful and the drought was over. And you can see this is first year of new drought conditions.
It looks like the whole state's on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Not much water. Not much water. Yeah. The only saving grace we have is our reservoirs are fairly full throughout the state from the wet year last year. We're still here at Oroville at this particular level, which is 64% of total capacity, about 92% of average, and also San Luis is in pretty good shape. We're looking here, once again, here's the level at Oroville, so it doesn't look too terribly bad. Unfortunately, most of the water that's going to be in Oroville will be used to satisfy the fish requirements in the fall and in the summer months. In addition to that, we can see the Santa Luis conditions, and this will correspond to some tactical changes we made this month here locally. You can see that the top of the filling of San Luis kind of stopped at this point. We're beginning to draft down, as you would see with this type of curve. Given the weather outlook, it doesn't look as if we'll be adding a lot of filling in San Luis. It'll be mostly draft between now and September. So with that in mind, you can see we have Quartz Hills operating about 17 to 18 million gallons a day. We've got 1.3 going through the East Side Water Treatment Plant, and we have a little bit going through Active and Palmer Water District here at Exchange. You can see where we're at. We're anywhere from 19 to 20 million gallons a day. Water banking recovery facilities, we're using a minimum amount of those. You can see we got 4.4 running on the west side. That's the minimum that we can do. Bench branches, this is just a testing amount that we're doing. That will turn off very quickly. You can see we have very little actually coming out of the water banks, about between 5 and 6 million gallons a day. We look at the recharge areas here. We were off on the east side doing some maintenance work, and then on the west side we were up at a pretty high level. This will all be the next report will show it to be zero as we go. We've ceased our water banking on the west side, and that's in result of you remember back in January where we had the good weather in December, and early in January we had an increase in the water going into San Luis, and there was a threat of spill. So we were trying to remove as much water as we could. out of our storage in San Luis, we wouldn't spill as much. However, with the change in the outlook and the fact that there's no rain at all in February, we have ceased banking water. We're going to use the balance of that water that's in San Luis Reservoir over the summer months to be able to meet our demand with a 15% demand. If we get a bump up, we get some rain in March or April or whatever that might allow them to bump up our allocation, then we'll be able to do a few more things. But right now, we have just the appropriate level of water that's available to meet our customer demands without any problem this year. So.
Another question. I noticed the last couple of days, the Amberglosa ponds are full. Are we going to put that on your next, showing?
Sure.
Is that our water, that AVAX water going in there?
Most of it is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll add that to the.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can put that. Just here's this graph here is just a historical value. You can see these blue bars are when Avek put water into the water bank. These little bars here is when Metropolitan and some other smaller agencies put water in the water bank. And here's some of the drafting that we've done, which we usually do. So you can see here, there's just a small amount of increment additional that occurred through January and February. If you add all of this up together, we got close to a little over 100,000 acre feet of water in storage in the West Side Water Bank. And but we do have 27,800 of that committed to other outside agencies, primarily Metropolitan. So we still have 82,700 something that's available to us. The disadvantage that we have, although it's great to have this resource there, the ability to move that out of the water bank and get it to the main population center in central Lancaster and Popdale is limited. And as we talk about the SNP phase 2 line, that will correct that problem, so we can fully utilize the total amount of water we have in storage. And we have a new graph for customer requests and actual deliveries. We had a lab audit that was done by the state, and it's called ELAC, and they approved a renewal of our lab, and so we went through the audit without any problems, and we're able to get our recertification. So kudos to Jordan for getting that done. Job well done. Our first quarter THM samples were collected last week, and so we'll have those results soon. On the operation maintenance side, staff is scheduling the 2019-2028 asset management or asset replacement projects. Our North Feeder maintenance shutdown has been completed. We're scheduling some work on the California City feeder repairs for next week. And as I mentioned, due to the dry forecast, you'll find maintaining a certain amount of water in the reservoir so that we can bring it into the Port Hill plant to serve the central part of our service area. We've ceased the banking operations. In the future, once our SNP phase 2 is in, we won't have that requirement. We'll be able to maintain much lower San Luis Reservoir levels and be able to store it in our own water banks and be able to use that water to back up, whether it's here or at the We did just some SNP phase 2 updates. We got a support letter from Gavin Newsom was received. We also got a support letter today from Congressman McCarthy. All the NEPA work is completed and it's been submitted to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and we're currently in their review process. We'll keep you updated on how that's going. This is for the WIN Act funding, which would generate $26 million to be able to build this phase 2 project. Some regulatory issues you might have heard it going on in the last few days with the new buyouts. The record of decision that was signed on 2/19. This is the federal buyout, which was issued by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Marine Fisheries Service. And those biological opinions and the record of decision was signed by President Trump when he was here last week. And immediately before, about 2 hours before he signed those, the state of California sued the federal government as those buyouts being not adequate to meet the take requirements that the state has, and didn't adequately protect the threatened species. So the state has decided to provide a temporary incidental take permit, because without an incidental take permit, the state water project could not operate. And so essentially what could have happened, but didn't happen, was that they could have not done the consistency hearing like they did on the biological opinions, and we would have had to shut off the pumps if the state hadn't issued an temporary incidental take permit. So what's happening over the next 60 days is that a final incidental take permit is being developed by the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the State Water Contracts is actively engaged in the development of that incidental take permit, because it has an effect on the amount of water that we'll be able to export and how much will have to be released. And it also, all of this matter will have an impact on the voluntary agreements, which is the cornerstone of the State Water Control Board Water Quality Control Plan, because the biological opinions and the differences between them have an impact there. So we have a lot of litigation, and we could potentially have more. So we're keeping track of this, and staff is working with the State Water Project Committee to keep them apprised of the latest developments, and we'll continue to do that. We have a meeting next Thursday where we'll go into a little more greater detail.
What about our state water contract getting extended?
Oh, well, the state water contract is the actual contract to change it from 2035 to 2085. That is being held up by Department of Water Resources at the present time. There's a dispute going on between the state water contractors and the DWR, having to do with the interpretation of a clause within the contract. So they're trying to work through those measures. It'd probably be better if we talked to them more in closed session with regards to that. And let's see, I want to talk about some regulatory legislative updates. We have there's not much that's going on out there, which is kind of a good thing, based on the thousands of bills that were introduced in the last month or so. But this bill is of note. It's the AB 2693. It's the watershed restoration for Orville, Shasta, and Trinity reservoirs. We establish a watershed restoration administration to coordinate and facilitate the restoration and conservation of watersheds, supplying water to various agencies. It could be good, could be bad, not sure. So we're watching it through our legislative advocates are taking a look at that for us. We did also have state water contractors issued an updated stakeholder toolkit, and this provides a lot of information with regards to calendars and various items that we can use to help explain what's happening in the Delta and others. And so this was prepared and we'll be utilizing it as part of our communication moving forward. We have, as far as events and schedules, we've got a water master board meeting tomorrow. We have the AD business and board trade business outlook conference on Friday. And my schedule, I will be here the rest of this week. I do have a one-day session next Wednesday up in Sacramento for some meetings there. Other than that, I'll be in the office. Happy to answer any questions you have for the other items.
So is Trump gonna get the farmers some water, or where are we headed with that?
Well, it's biological opinions provide some, they don't provide the water. What they do is provide more opportunity to pump water south, because they use, rather than using calendars to dictate regulations, they're using actual science and the actual measured abilities to determine whether there's going to be an impact to the fish, and that's not being considered as part of the state.
No, the answer is yes.
Yeah, so there'll be a little bit of water.
And the official line, the official line.
Okay. Item 11, director's reports. Do you guys have anything to report? In case you didn't hear, we got our letter from Mr. McCarthy. I know. I just have to say it again, because it's really exciting, because this is really going to help us on our way for our phase 2 government funding that we're so hopeful to get. And Governor Newsom got us the letter, and we have all our other things put together, so it's looking good. And that's just such an important piece to finish our pipeline. And there's so many more opportunities we can have to deliver water with that last piece there. Okay, item 12. Mr. Markman.
I do have some things to report. It came to my attention that some of the things I run across doing what I do and reviewing materials could be of interest to the board, even though it may not be right in the board's lane as far as what you exactly do. So I have talked with Dwayne and Matt about this, and come to you when I come up here. I'll bring some items that I think are interesting. I can tell you that most of the literature the last 2 months are all about the end of the world kind of things. The articles talk about what Wayne just talked about, this lawsuit coming. That could have created a showdown where the State Water Project could have worked if those people wanted to be stubborn enough to see who would blink. Fortunately, that didn't happen, but now you're going to have a major piece of litigation over that statement, that decision, an environmental decision, and the farmers may get a little water, but they're not going to be able to count on it until they run that all the way through the Ninth Circuit, which I don't think is necessarily going to be favorable to the federal government. And so that means it almost has to be a Supreme Court case, and that's a year, 2 years, 3 years away. So that's a problem. The one that's most talked about, though, are the coastal cities and the Coastal Commission, and now how they're reacting to all these forecasts, scientific forecasts, that a whole lot of development that's been approved recently, especially in San Francisco, is going to be overrun by the ocean about 2030, 2040 by climate change. And I mean, there's some just a flood of these articles talking about land use planning that's recent. Cities don't know what to do as far as building protection mechanisms against the rising sea level. And this is happening up and down the state. A lot of money is being spent on this, and there's a lot of time spent talking about all the close to the ocean projects, from desal plants to motels to single-family homes, are creating all this litigation over those potential outcomes. So I won't talk about that, but every week. It's almost every day you get an article like that. But there are 2 or 3 things I wanted to mention. One is, I don't know if William was going to mention this or not, but there is one bill that passed that helps Avek directly and all other retail or water delivery systems or agencies, and that is when the electrical companies turn off with all the electricity to avoid wildfires. There was a lot of problems with public entities running generators to keep the water systems going because of the air pollution that's generated. This is a direct violation of air pollution regulations. So AB 2182 was introduced. It was sponsored by Aqua, which would exempt these public entities that are serving water from these pollution regulations during these times where PG&E and SoCal Edison turn off all the electricity. So you gotta have water. Even if you don't have electricity, you still have to deliver the water. So that was one item I wanted to mention. Another item I wanted to mention, which I just think is fascinating to me because I've had this issue going on 10 years in Anza, California, where we're litigating against the Cahuilla Indian tribe. They're taking half the safe yield because they have a reservation. They've never used the water on it. Now they want to. So our clients are pretty much all the population that's been there in their houses and their domestic wells relying on this water source. And this tribe wants to put the water to any use they can. So we're down at the end of 12 years of negotiating. And now they want to monetize their water rights by inviting a bottling company to come in, put a bottling company in the reservation, and sell all the water off the hill, so to speak, in bottles. And so that's interesting because there's an interesting issue as to whether you can use the water off the actual physical site of the reservation in order to monetize it. But I came across an article that was put out by DWR last week about all the lawsuits and counterattacks that are going on around the country against bottling companies that are coming into small groundwater basins and creating problems and taking the supply away faster than they should. The state of Washington actually has legislation trying to stop this bottling. And the question is that a beneficial use of water? Well, it's not beneficial to the area from which it's being exported, because when you suck it out and put it in a bottle and truck it away, there's no return flows. Nothing good happens in the community except some people have a job at the bottling plant. So that's a big issue in Michigan and some other Midwestern states.
What about Palm Springs? And those
Well, that's even better. Well, I can talk about I should talk about the Agua Caliente case. I can tell you what's happening with that. But in Palm Springs, that whole area has been subjected to a big loss of water. And a lot of people are talking about springs running very, very shallow, very dry. And it's because of the Morongo deal that went down 15, 20 years ago. And that was fought through at the State Water Resources Control Board for a while, and then it disappeared. But the Morongos sold a water source, which probably in their case is spring water. And the argument was, is that a beneficial use? And if you're going to bring Nestle up there, they're going to bottle all the water and take it away. But basically it was fought up to the state board, and then somebody dropped the suit, whoever was contesting it. But so they're sucking a lot of, I'm not sure how much, but I know the price because I've seen the contract. It's a penny a gallon, which is $32,600 an acre foot that they are getting for that water. And you can see the water itself is worth a penny a gallon. Imagine what they sell it for at about $25 a bottle. But anyway, that has caused some consternation up in the Palm Springs area. So anyway, it's interesting for me to watch this because the bottling companies are relatively, I don't want to say they're dishonest, but they have a lot of criteria they're supposed to meet, health standards before they bottle that water. They say it's spring water, which means they need or something running artesian, and then they drop a well in right next to it and say, I'm pumping spring water. And nobody knows if they really saw it running artesian or not. And it's supposed to be TDS 300 parts or less. It's still very lucrative if somebody can find at least 500 acre feet a year to tap. So we know, and that ties into the last thing I want to say is there was a historic day, the end of January. That was the day when the first wave of Sigma plans were required to be filed with DWR, the most stressed basins in the state of California. We're supposed to present their plans for becoming sustainable over the next 20 years. And a lot of plans were filed, and it is an historic day, but in my experience with the 2 or 3 ones I'm working on one up in China Lake for the Sigma agency up there, is that no, it hasn't dawned on the people the kind of hit they have to take. None of them, you want to call them stakeholders like agricultural operations or ratepayers on water district systems, retail ratepayers. Even up there in China Lake with that big naval installation, all the literal rocket scientists living there are having a hard time absorbing a rational share of the cost of getting getting sustainable. They pump 400 times the safe field up in Ridgecrest in China Lake, and it's very, very difficult. So that's drawn its first lawsuit by a pistachio grower. There's probably going to be a few more. Whether this really happens and we see some sustainability plans and people have locally solved their problems, or whether it's just going to hatch a bunch of new adjudications under the Streamlined Adjudication Act, we don't know. I've already seen 2 where it's hatched the adjudications. The other ones is Las Posas. That's a classic you can't believe. Basically, that's Fox Canyon Groundwater Agency. They've got several basins. They were down to the last 3 months of adopting a sustainability plan, and a farming group sued them. And they sued them because it's essentially a power struggle as to whether the farmers have the state tell them what the safe field is, or have this public board, which is completely composed, it's not like your board, there's no overliers, completely composed of public entities, whether they'll tell them. And so it started out with a lawsuit by these farmers against Fox Canyon and the Waterworks District, the retailer. Everyone settled with the Waterworks District. And then the 2 farm groups split in half. One of them made a deal with the Groundwater Agency, the Sustainability Agency. If you tell us the safe field is 36,000 acre-feet a year, we'll go away. The other half of the farming group is not satisfied with that because they would rather go to the court and ask the court to manage that basin in the context of an adjudication. So I see a lot of generation of good stuff for lawyers, lots of litigation at the same time the sustainability plan is being processed. So it was a great day in California because truly it is. You do have administration of groundwater possible, whether people locally feel it's important enough to solve their problem, keep the state out of it, keep the state away from doing it and imposing on them. I don't know. And so I'll say again, so this is one of the reasons I always thought, still do, when I'm working on these water master rules particularly, all these groups are together, that this got done here, and all these groups took some tremendous cutbacks in order to make the Antelope Valley adjudication happen, which is what you would hope would happen in these most stressed basins in California, but so far that hasn't been the case.
No.
So that would be my report.
Thank you very much. Yeah, items.
I have one.
Okay.
Kind of brought to our attention with some of these projects, and this one on top of the hill here, CD Communities. They went and bought they prepaid their capacity fee, developer fees 12 years ago, whatever, I don't know, maybe longer than that. And we don't have, well, did anybody look into that? We don't have a provision that after so many years that we have to do the gap.
Correct. Yeah, I did look into that under the current resolution that set the capacity charges for the agency. There is, as you stated, there's no, if somebody prepays for a new development for a capacity charge, and that development sits idle for a number of years, and then subsequently wants to activate it, there's no requirement for them to pay the difference between the fee paid back then versus the current fee.
And then